Welcome to Further Impressions on the Crew 2. I noticed last video ended up being a bit long, and I still overall recommend watching all the way through it. Of course, I'm going to recommend watching all the way through it because I made it, so take that as you may. But maybe in hindsight I should have made that a two-parter. But honestly, all that video sort of still went together though, like it was meant to be a one-parter, it just ran a bit long. Because that was showing mostly positives of the game. Because as I said near the end of the review, at that point I was giving the game overall about a 9 out of 10, but I haven't done all the stuff that the beta has to offer. And I didn't have all of the cards in which you could use in the main game and events once those are offered. As I said though, the beta doesn't offer too much to do in terms of events. But you could buy all of the classes of cards in which you can use in the future events in the main game. By the end, I had at least one of every class of vehicle. And this is after the beta completely, so I've done everything it has to offer. So this is pretty much my full review of the beta. Of course, this still isn't for the main game, and I'll re-review it for the main game. Because I will say this right now, it's looking like I am going to get it. But, well, there's a but to it, and here it is. To start off, though, for whatever there is negative coming up, you can't deny the positive when the game is working well. This is just one of many, and this runs perfectly smooth and looks perfectly fine. The graphics in this game are good, and it runs perfectly fine even on a standard PlayStation 4. As of now, I am driving pretty much at max speed a futuristic F1 car on the streets of Miami, Florida in the snow. All of those things don't happen in real life, literally all of them. Going 200 miles an hour in the streets of Miami, no. Streets of Miami with snow, no. F1 car in the streets, no. F1 car in the snow, no. And whatever other combination of those things you can think of as well, is probably still a no. But nonetheless, I'm doing it and having a whole heck of a heap of fun doing it, and the game is handling it perfectly fine. Now, I will say this is just a beta, and I'm not going to touch on this too much because it didn't seem to happen the second time around when there was snow. But the first time there was snow, it did crash like 2 or 3 times, but this was actually the second time around, and it ran that much smoother. So I say that more of a point to show that it does seem like Ubisoft is working on fixing issues in the beta, as they should, so good job on them for fixing that the second time around. I didn't have anything wrong with the snow the second time I saw it. Saw it 2 times total. But anyway, that's pretty picking cool right yonder. That's all of the things I could really ask for in an arcade racing game. That's like, yeah, can't really go wrong there, folks. And it still controls well in the snow. Take that as you may too, but again, it's an arcade game. It's supposed to be more fun than realistic. And, well, I'm having a whole heck of a heap of... I just got killed by a Dodge. Moving on, folks. Moving on. Just forget like that. Yeah, just moving on. Moving on. Anyway, another positive, too, which I didn't really touch on as much in the first review, is how well it does the different landscapes. I sort of said to begin with that the landscapes were more vast, and just the map in general is bigger, but I didn't touch on some of the specifics. It seems like no matter where you are, they at least didn't downgrade, and there's a whole heck of a heap of areas in which they upgraded. Including, it seems like in the mountainous regions, such as Grand Canyon and all that area, it seems like they added certain parts in which you could rock climb. There isn't any rock climbing events yet, but it's looking like there's a good basis in which they could add some in the future. If y'all watched the Fail Race episode where he's doing the coast-to-coast trip, he rock climbed the buggy as well, in an even crazier portion than I was. But mine is more of what would be considered a realistic rock climb. I think more of a like a linear thing. It gets gradually harder as you go, and it's not just straight up a mountain. But either way, it's definitely cool. I do recommend watching the Fail Race tour thing on the Crew 2. But anyway, there you have it, folks. There is rock climbing, and there may be events in that in the future. And, as I said in the last video, there is loot boxes, which is starting to stray towards more the negative portion of the review. But, as I said in the last video too, it seems like when you do the loot boxes, you are guaranteed at least not worse parts. Occasionally in races, especially near when you're max level, you will get some worse parts, but you're already near max level anyway. And it seems like for the loot boxes I've found, there's never been any worse parts. And with the loot boxes, you can switch to any vehicle that the loot box is like on or whatever. Like any ground vehicle to get a ground loot box, any water vehicle to get a water loot box. So if you have to see an air loot box, but I guess in theory maybe you could taxi your plane over to it, but I think it depends on where that loot box is too. Like if I were to try that here, I don't think I'd be able to make it there, but some maybe. But anyway, what I'm saying is, if you're in a ground vehicle, you can switch to whatever one you want parts for, and then get the loot box, and then you get parts for that class of vehicle. This is a hypercar spec, which overall is the most expensive in the game. If you get the most expensive hypercar, it's the Kendon C. Regera. I think that's how that's pronounced. And it's $1.7 million, so in credits, whatever. So in theory, you sort of kind of want to get loot for them first, just because they're the most expensive class. And you can switch to a hypercar if you got it. This is actually the cheapest hypercar, but they all go up to the max range, so really, if you want to save money, just get the cheapest of every class if you're okay with grinding. And grinding isn't too difficult in this game because, well, there's two options of getting parts now. There's the loot boxes and the general races and events like there used to be. It doesn't seem like you can buy parts, but I've had like cutscenes and stuff in which it said you could. So maybe you can buy parts in the main game, but they just didn't have that yet in the beta because they're still doing final touches on it, blah, blah, blah. Whatever, I'll review that when I come, but I'm not going to get into it too much before it's actually there, because there's no point in speculating yet. But anyway, moving on. I was trying to kind of go it more linearly, really cotton picking cool to starting to be bad, and well, this is just getting downright stupid. Loot boxers are kind of in the middle when they're done well, but they can't exactly be necessarily a good thing. But yeah, this is just downright annoying. All of the skills challenges still have traffic. That was one of the main complaints I had in the first game that ended up on the Crew Logic video, because, as y'all know, this game and the Crew 1 as well was online only. So therefore, in the challenges, I mean, you're competing to get the parts and stuff too, to get whatever score you need for that. But you're also competing against friends and leaderboards and all that. Meaning, in theory, to make it fair, they should either have no traffic at all or the same traffic each time you try the event. Like, everyone has the exact same traffic every time. Or just no traffic at all. But no. The traffic in every skill, still in this game, is random. Like, as y'all can see here, I had to sweave to avoid hitting the taxi. Or really, both taxis. I mean, I split that gap pretty well. But I had no time whatsoever to avoid hitting that. Literally, there was nothing I could do in that situation. I was either going to hit a car or hit that, and I figured initially that was going to be breakable, but it's not. Which is sort of a minor side note, too. It's hard to say exactly yet, because I haven't been everywhere in the game. But it seems like there is more just scenery in general. There's more different things in the game, like different types of trees and different types of these things and stuff. And some more of the new stuff is breakable, some of it's not. So that's just something you have to memorize, what is and ain't breakable. And nonetheless, this isn't something you need to memorize. There's traffic every time, so therefore you physically cannot memorize it. It changes every cotton picking time, which means skill events are pure luck. There's not really skill involved, because if you wait long enough, eventually you're going to get a point in which traffic won't get in your way. But who knows when that eventually would be. That's downright stupid, in my opinion. An online-only game that relies on leaderboards to make it competitive, so to at least make it fair for the leaderboards and not random. Also, as I touched on a bit in the previous game, or in the previous video, but didn't mention too much, because again, I hadn't tested it too much, the switching between cars mechanic is kind of wonky. There seems to be a load time in between switching cars in which it shows the car like dissolving or whatever and then switching to the other one. I don't know if that's just something they have to do in order to load in the car, and they just added a little cutscene there so you think it's fluid, but really it's just a load time. or if it's just their own mechanic to some reason make it delayed. But either or, it shouldn't be there. If it's an actual technical aspect of it and it's really just a load time, that's kind of stupid. Given that there's games out there in which you can switch between vehicles immediately, aka the Crew 1, like you just go to a menu, pick a vehicle, and then switch into it. This has, you can switch into different types. Sure, like GTA Weapon Wheel or something like that, just with cars. None of those things need load times, but this does. And restarting events for some reason needs load times now too. Again, the game is online only, so it doesn't even really fully pause you when you try to restart an event. Which I guess you can kind of expect for an online only game, but still it seems kind of iffy in an offline event where you're not challenging anybody. In my opinion, at least those should be able to be paused. But whatever, the main thing that makes me mad about that is there's now a load time to even restart the event. I don't know exactly how long it is, but I will show it on camera here. I hit that because I was trying to sweep from traffic that's unavoidable because it's random, which is a strike in and of itself. And then I go to restart the event. Look at that bar. That's a loading bar right there, folks. That's a cotton picking loading bar to restart an event. That's downright stupid. And then, if you don't get the loading bar before the event ends, whether it's the timer runs out or if it's like a escape thing and the escape boundary gets to you or whatever, it just ignores your request to restart the event. And then you have to sit through a cutscene to restart it again and reload the restart button. You can hold to restart now, which is basically just a loading time. Again, I don't know if it's a technical requirement to have loading times now just because better graphics, bigger game, all blah blah blah. So there needs to be a little bit of time to load this stuff. But at the very least, if it has to happen, at least make it not a delayed reaction in the point of if it doesn't load in time, you can't do it at all. At the very least, if you start restarting an event, let it restart the event immediately instead of having to redo it or wait or whatever. All in all, I'd rate the menus in this game about a 6 out of 10. I mean, there's still some cool stuff you can do. I guess, in theory, there's not really other games out there that have the switch between different types of vehicles feature in that way, so that's cool. And then there's also the thing in which you can, like, go to the different leaderboards immediately instead of having to, like, go to an event. To where you can actually see what time you're looking for and what's the best car, so then you just go to a different screen and buy that car. Instead of having to sit through waiting for like a load screen to go to a dealership or go to that event itself. But in other ways, it just adds in that much more unneeded time. And the first part that I said about going to the dealership is kind of a controversial issue as well. Because there's kind of dealerships in this game. You can walk around to different HQs in your own house and stuff. But again, as I said, as of now, you can't actually buy parts. And you can only get certain cars at certain HQs, but there's no actual dealership in which you physically go to. There's a dealership option, like you can go to the Hyundai dealership, you can go to the, just any brand. I think I said Hyundai first, because I was actually thinking of Gran Turismo Sport, where they added something there. I don't actually know if there's Hyundai in this game, that's what I was thinking, because I heard about, whatever. This is still mainly a Gran Turismo channel, I swear. This Gran Turismo is getting kind of lackluster lately, and this game looks a whole heck of a heap better, despite the negativity I'm showing here, because this is just the first time I've really shown that much negativity towards this game. But I think you all get what I'm saying. It's a clunky system in which there's some ways it does well, but in some ways there's just no reason that it does bad, really. And they could easily fix it, or at least make it to where it's not a downright headache if they can't fix it, such as load time. But anyway, sort of kind of the same thing, but a different situation. Here, an event ends. I was going to attempt to restart it, as y'all can see there. It's load time again, but I was trying to load and a restart there. So I wasn't really controlling my vehicle at that point, but because of that, I wrecked, and it just ignores the request completely, and it doesn't even like go back to the start of the event at the very least. It just resets you in a random place and doesn't even allow you to restart at all. Like, look, there. There's not even an option to reset. That's just downright stupid. It doesn't let you restart immediately, and then it doesn't even give you an option at all. That shouldn't be a thing. Don't really need much more explanation than that. And moving on. This isn't really about restarts, but it is about resetting. Which, in some senses, restarts involve resetting, because for skills, it resets your car in front of the event. This, I switch vehicles, which again takes an amount of time now. And then, when I switch into a car, which is a road car, it's a GTR, I quote-unquote wreck by hitting a tree, which in and of itself is arbitrary too. Depending on what you hit, depends on if it's a wreck or not. But then it doesn't reset you where you land, it resets you on the road at a pretty cotton-picking random point. Because I don't know if y'all could hear that or not, but I mean, y'all can see this radar no matter what. The radar beeps the closer you get to a loot box. Now I'm not even within a vicinity for it to beep. It reset you so far away from the thing and something you had no control over that now you can't even necessarily find it again. Luckily it shows paths you previously took, but then again, I took that path in a plane, not a car, so... Moving on, again, that doesn't need much more explanation. They should reset you where you were and not where it thinks you should be. Because loot boxes aren't on the road, that's kind of the point. Anyway, moving on. Again, with resetting and restarting, this is sort of kind of a combination of both. If you wreck, it makes sense that it would like slow you down and hurt the overall time. What doesn't make sense is their load times in which reset your car counts for the overall time for the event. So their slow load times screw you over during an event. Again, I guess that kind of makes sense in an online race. But this is an offline skill. Obviously, again, the total time, or whatever, total points, if it's an escape like this is, goes on a leaderboard if you improve. But during the event itself, I'm not competing against anyone else. So if you wreck, the load time of the game resetting you should not affect that event in and of itself if it's not against other real people. Again, that doesn't really need that much more explanation there either. There's not that much really to explain. All this should be obvious, but yet it still happens. This, though, I've tried my best to end on a positive. At least with everything being kind of wonky with the menus, restarting, resetting, all that. At the very least, you don't have to restart too much, even with a weird vehicle. Like, obviously, you can restart when the event ends, but that's actually smooth as long as you don't wreck or nothing gets in your way. And oddly enough, you can do a whole heck of a heap of skill events pretty smoothly in drag spec vehicles. They've made the drag spec vehicles a whole heck of a heap easier to drive in this game than previously. In the old game, drag spec vehicles were pretty much only good for speed events that were directly in a straight line, jump events that were on tarmac, or one or two total escape events where it's sort of on a highway and you can wall ride around turns and stuff. This, I'm in completely out of this car's element in theory, a slalom event in the middle of a field, and I easily did it. 4,500 points, get 3,500. I got that and then some, and I actually got better runs later on in the drag spec vehicle. So that's pretty cool right yonder. You can do different events and different specs of vehicles and still be able to get them to the point where you can help that spec of vehicle that would be harder to get otherwise. The more events you can do in each type of vehicle, the better. But, as y'all just saw there, I could do an event easily in a vehicle that wasn't really made for it. This, it's pretty picking hard to do and about a perfect vehicle for it. This probably, all in all, is going to be the best vehicle on a road in the game. It may not have the overall fastest top speed, but it will have the best handling, aka the F1 car. This is that escape event I showed earlier, and this is how I'll end the video on. Just look at this cotton picking stupidity right yonder. Going good? Going good? Nope, so I'll restart. Hallelujah, it let me restart this time, but to still random traffic. I'm in the best vehicle in the game for this, but still, that cannot defeat the traffic, so restart yet again, 2 times in a row having to restart with the best vehicle in the game. 3rd time's the charm, maybe? Nope, I still get stuck, and this time I can't even restart. The Crew 2. There's a whole heck of a heap good to it, just some of it's not the best executed. All in all, right now I give it about an 8 out of 10. All these glitches I showed ain't necessarily game-breaking in a lot of different events, but there's going to be some events that involve switching around vehicles or quickly resetting or stuff like that. And even when they don't, just restarting an event should be pretty cop-picking simple and not a chore. It's not downright game-breaking, but it is annoying, and that takes off 1 point. The Crew 2 as of now is about an 8 out of 10, with potential to be pretty nearly a 10 out of 10, but as of now it ain't. Still for yeehaw, yeah, yeehaw, but less than it used to be. We'll see about the main game, though. We'll see.